What is going on, guys? You are watching Gunplay TV, and today on the channel we're taking a look at something different from the boys at Taurus, okay? And so I'll go ahead and preface this video by saying that those of you who know me personally will know that I'm something of a Taurus skeptic, okay? And I like to approach their firearms with a grain of salt. And in the interest of full disclosure, I will go ahead and say that Taurus did send out this unit for review. Now, with all that being said, we are going to approach this as unbiasedly as possible, and I'm going to try to give you guys nothing but the facts and my sheer opinions on this firearm, okay? So with all that being said, let's get straight into it. Now, as is the case with a lot of firearm OEMs and manufacturers within the space, they typically tend to form or garner what you might call a cult following or a loyal fan base within the industry, okay? And so Taurus, I would say, is no different in that regard. They tend to have a pretty loyal fan base, primarily because, well, they make guns that are more or less compelling at a very compelling price point, right? And so over the years, Taurus has kind of increased their reputation to a more reliable position in the marketplace. And so we're going to take a look at what we've got here in the box and evaluate it with a clean slate, okay? And so we'll go ahead and crack this open, and we'll see that what we have inside is in fact the new Taurus GX4. Now, not extremely new at this point. I've had this firearm for several weeks. I wanted to make sure that I got a good sense of what the firearm has to offer, got some rounds through it, and actually formed something of my own opinion, okay? So I'll go ahead and unpack everything that we've got here. We'll take a look at what we got in the box, and then we'll get into the specs and features. All right, guys, so what you see here on the table is essentially what you're gonna get in the box when you purchase your Taurus GX4, okay? And bear in mind that purchase price, at least MSRP from Taurus, is under $400, okay? So that MSRP from Taurus is $392 if memory serves me correctly. Again, a very compelling price point for everything that's included here on the table. Okay, so first thing we'll see, you do get two mags, all right? And both of those mags, I will go ahead and flip them over for you. They are 11 round magazines, okay? And so this firearm is gonna kind of find itself within the new sector of the marketplace, if you will, that I like to call micro compacts or micro double stack firearms, if you will. Essentially, right, the SIG P365 came along and really popularized this sector of the market, right? A very compact firearm, very small overall size, right? But what they did was some innovation with the magazine and essentially built a 1.5 stack or more or less a micro double stack magazine that's gonna allow you to get much more rounds into the firearm, actually making it much more akin to what you might find in something that's closer to a full-size offering, right? And so for something this small, to have 11 rounds in the magazine, plus one in the chamber, mind you. So 12 rounds in a micro compact for under $400, okay? So very compelling what they've done here. And again, trying to find themselves and kind of inch into that marketplace of micro double stack compact firearms, okay? So aside from that, you get your two Metgar magazines, all right? These are steel. They do seem to be well made. I'm happy with that. You get your sidearm, of course. We'll take a look at this in greater detail in a bit. But as we can see, right, it is extremely small, micro compact. We can see up front, we do have a slide release there on the left side of the firearm, but not on the right side. So something of a knock there, but we'll revisit that again going forward. We'll also see, I don't have them out here on the table, but when you do purchase this firearm, you do have the ability to adjust the backstrap sizing, okay? So there's a pin in there, you can pop that out and throw on another backstrap. I'll pull that out later in the video so we can take a look at that together. You are gonna get your usual literature that we're not gonna be using today. And of course, your safety lock, should you have children in the home, you do wanna be able to lock that up and put that out the way, right? Okay, so all of the extras out of the way here, essentially taking a look at what we need to work with the firearm, okay? So before I clear out the rest of the table, I will point out that this little Micro GX4 keychain is both a keychain and an adjustment tool or a takedown tool, right? So we'll see here on the bottom, there is something of a flathead screwdriver, a flathead edge in the bottom of that, and that's gonna allow you to do the takedown procedure, okay? So we'll bring this little guy out here in a bit. All right, guys, so with the table pretty much stripped of everything that we don't need, we can take a look at the Taurus GX4 as it stands, okay? And so we've already tested on the two 11 round magazines that are included out of the box, all right? And so 11 plus one, 12 round capacity in the firearm. This small is, again, very compelling, okay? So I will go on to mention that this, of course, is going to be a striker fired system, single action only, okay? So no surprises in its operation or its core operation, if you will, okay? Now, one thing I'll point out about that trigger, it is quite crisp, all right? And actually, we'll go ahead and we'll pull that together. But one thing I want to call out before I do that is take a look at that trigger bar safety. I don't, maybe that's the incorrect term. I like to call that a trigger bar safety, but essentially what it does is it's going to prevent that trigger from traveling to the rear and breaking inadvertently, right? We've seen these before. Glocks have these type of triggers. A lot of manufacturers are using a similar system to further ensure the safety of the firearm. So what I'll do is, as I break this, we'll see that I'll pull that back. That trigger bar safety, for lack of a better term, is kind of clearing out of the way. It's going to allow me to pull that back there, get a nice crisp break. All right, we'll see what that resets like here together. All right, so it is kind of a forced reset in the sense that that trigger is kind of spring-loaded. It does push your finger back out. But once I remove my finger from this trigger, right, we'll notice that that trigger bar safety that we took a look at before is no longer in its extended position. Now, I'm not sure if this is a quality control issue for the GX4 as a whole, or if maybe I just have a particularly bad example. But that trigger bar safety, I would expect to kind of re-extend itself after each pull, so that when I do go back, I need to make sure I'm making a concerted effort to pull that in and break the trigger. Okay, so again, that's one of the first things that I saw with this unit, and again, in the interest of full disclosure, this is part of what kind of makes me wary of Taurus at times, right? Sometimes their quality control can be hit and miss, okay? And so that was the first instance of quality control that I saw as soon as I got this out the box. It has not improved over time, but again, I wanted to be clear and honest in my review, and I wanted to call that out as something of a potential flaw, okay? So take that as you will. All right, so yet another spec or feature, if you will, that's gonna be very important, particularly for a gun in this sector of the marketplace, right? Very much aimed at concealed carry and self-defense use, is going to be the sights, all right, and the sight picture that you get, okay? And so the arrangement that they've given us on this GX4 is going to be, you have a white dot front, all right, so no tritium, no night illumination of any kind, of course, no fiber optic, and then you've got a serrated rear black sight, okay? And so typically, if I'm going to have a non-tritium or non-fiber optic sight arrangement, this is how I like to see it, right? Something high contrast up front, and then something that's going to contrast even better with that in back, and I do very much like black rear serrated sights, okay? So happy to see that, but again, in the interest of full disclosure and being honest about this review unit and how I received it, I'll roll in a picture, but when it came in, again, may or may not be a testament to quality control over there at Taurus or lack thereof, but my rear sight was extended from the side of the slide, okay? So of course, these slides are windage adjustable, right? You should be able to slide them left to right, but of course, it's gonna be a concerted effort. That's something that you do with a sight pusher tool, and again, actively try to move those sights into a better sight alignment. Now, I will say that when they arrived, once more, this U-notch, if you will, was pretty much over the left corner, if my memory serves me. Maybe it was over the right corner. I will roll in a picture, but it was not aligned out of the box. Now, of course, I did push that back in with the sight pusher, took it back to the range, confirmed 0. It does shoot accurately once the sight picture or the sights have been adjusted, but I did want to point out that when I received this unit, they were not in their correct position, okay? So again, in the interest of full disclosure, something that I saw that I did not like about the Taurus was that, yeah, that trigger bar safety doesn't seem to be working, and those sights came out of the box way misaligned, okay? So with all that being said, let's move on to measurements. So as we said, the GX4 is going to be a micro compact style firearm. So again, very small, more or less smaller than the size of my hand here, right? So you're going to have an equally small barrel length, all right? So that barrel length is going to come in at 3.06 inches, so just over 3 inches, okay? And the overall length of the firearm itself, all right, is going to be 5.8 inches as configured here. We do have the included small back strap on the firearm. Now, if you did opt to upgrade that to the large back strap, all right, that's going to increase the size of that firearm to 6.05 inches overall length, okay? So it's going to give it a little bit more sticking out the back there. And just for reference, right, here is that extended back strap, all right? And so again, we mentioned that these are included in the box. You can easily pop one out, pop it out on an arm just to help fill the swell of your palm if you do find that the firearm is a little bit too small. Overall height from top to bottom is going to come in at 4.4 inches. All right, now, provided you're not adding any extended magazines. All right, so overall width, again, very small. A gun this size or in this category, right, is going to be aimed primarily at concealed carry, and width is going to be a component in that, right? So we've got these 1.5 or pseudo double stack magazines, all right, and they still managed to keep the overall width of the firearm to 1.08 inches, all right. So overall, very slim, very well-rounded as an overall concealed carry subcompact or micro compact firearm, okay? And all of that coming together, unloaded of course, to a weight of 18.5 ounces. So very small overall. All right, so moving on to yet another metric that may or may not be indicative of quality. I suppose depending on who you ask, is going to be the materials and composition that are used to kind of piece this thing together. All right, so starting with the slide, it is metal, of course, as we'd expect. It's a steel alloy slide. All right, and it's going to be riding on a stainless steel frame, which is inside of this polymer grip housing. Okay, now of course the barrel also going to be stainless steel. These are more or less standard materials, pretty much good all around. Right now, 9mm bore hole there in the front, as we would expect. Okay, now the slide is finished in a nitride coating. Taurus calls that their gas nitride coating. Okay, so take that take that as it will. Now the frame that's riding on the inside, of course, is going to be stainless, so it's going to have a matte finish. Would I like to see that polished, maybe just for a slicker action overall, but we'll see if maybe that's a factor or not. Okay, and then the barrel finish, we saw that briefly, but it does have a pretty nice satin black DLC coating. Now I've got a few hundred rounds on this. I'm not going to purport to have put through grand thumb numbers on this firearm, but I am pretty happy with how it has held up. Right, the finish for the most part is in good shape. Even despite getting some of those rounds off in rapid succession, I don't see any warping or discoloration in the barrel caused to that heat buildup. Same thing with the slide. Magazines, everything seems to be in good shape. Now, reliability, of course, is a metric that lives inherently in the firearm, but there, of course, is going to be a component that's contingent on the shooter, right? And so if your grip, your fundamentals aren't there, you're going to see less than ideal reliability out of your firearm. And that's pretty much the case with any handgun for that matter. Okay, now I will say that in my time, I've probably got between 300 and 600 rounds on this guy. I've seen 0 failure to feeds, 0 failure to fires, 0 light primer strikes. Essentially, it's been 100% reliable, okay? And I can say that honestly. I'm not gonna say that I expected it to fail. I know a lot of the newer Taurus models have kind of ironed out those kinks as far as day-to-day reliability. Now, time will tell once we get this into the 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 round count, whether or not those failures start to tick up. But to this point, I've got to say that this GX4, it's pretty reliable for a gun this size and a gun that's this new to the market. Now, of course, Taurus not a new manufacturer, but again, trying to shake that name or that reputation for lackluster quality, I think that they've got something good on their hands here. This GX4 is compelling, especially at its price point. I think it finds itself aligned with the Springfield Hellcat, of course, the 6-hour P365. Kimber has a new micro compact out, right? And so that portion of the market is booming right now. And Taurus, again, is trying to come in and be the budget option without sacrificing too much reliability. And to this point, I can say that they've done that, okay? So I'm happy with the reliability, all right? So I'll wrap this up, I guess, with some basic features that I like about the gun. The stippling out of the box is pretty damn good, I've got to be honest. For an OEM stipple job, and I've seen these type of stipple jobs increase in quality over the past few years, but from somebody like Taurus, I'm pleased with this. This has a readily aggressive texture, but again, not something that's going to dig into your abdomen when you're concealed carrying this. And this, to me, I'm not positive. Again, I'm not close to the R&D side, but it seems that they've kind of varied that stipple texture a bit from side to front to rear back strap in order to give you the best balance overall. And in the hand, I've got relatively average size hands, large to average or average to large, if you will. It's not the best fit, right? I would like to see some of those pinky extended magazines come out at some point. But for a gun this size, very, very nice. Of course, the majority of my grip is coming from my ring and middle fingers, but I can say that when shooting this, it's pretty comfortable. Now, if you have shot a gun in this family or this size, if you will, right, these micro compacts, you will know that, well, grip is going to be something that is to some degree sacrificed. That 1.5 stack mag means that your overall width of the firearm is probably going to be a bit thinner or slimmer than your full-size offerings, and of course trying to keep that as compact as possible, only keeping it to 11, 12, maybe 13 rounds. I think is the most that I've seen from this this marketplace, or this sector of the marketplace, from any competitor. You're not going to have the longest grip, okay? So Sig Sauer, as we know, has offered additional magazines that might give you a round or two extra, and in addition to that, give you something of a pinky rest to give you more of a natural full grip. But all in all, the grip is pretty damn good. Now, when you are shooting something this small, of course, physics is going to kick in, right? Equal and opposite reactions and all that jazz, right? So what that essentially means is that, well, you know, you're shooting a 9mm bullet from a smaller gun. If you were to shoot that same 9mm bullet from a full-size, let's say Glock 17, for example, well, that weight differential between the weight of the bullet and the weight of the gun is a lot greater on a larger firearm, right? Which means that that larger firearm has more mass to absorb that recoil of that 9mm, however many grains projectile. If we take that same bullet and we put that in a smaller gun, which of course has less mass, it's going to transfer more of that recoil to the shooter's hand. Now, that doesn't mean by any means that, you know, this thing is going to be flipping out of control. It's still a 9mm, right? It's still a very manageable and common cartridge, okay? And so if you're familiar with the recoil of a 9mm, you will be able to pick this up and run with it. Chances are, though, it's just going to be a little bit snappier in your hand at first, right? Not painful, but if you shot a Micro Compact, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They are a little snappy in hand, but I found this to be very manageable and very much on par with my P365. All in all, I think that Taurus has something on their hands here that's going to put them ahead in the marketplace, or at least ahead of their current standing where they're at right now. Now, I'm not going to sit up here and tell you that as far as quality and quality control, that this Taurus GX4 is going to edge out offerings from Kimber or Sig Sauer, for example. But I can tell you that if, you know, you're a new customer, maybe a woman, or even a new firearms owner, maybe you're buying this for a family member or a side gun, you don't want to come out and spend $500, $600. I think that many buyers are going to find themselves in the gun stores with several of these on the table, and ultimately aren't going to be able to differentiate too much between the two of them, right? And so for those customers that don't have a brand loyalty preference, or haven't already bought into the Springfield family, and are just looking for something micro compact, I think that's where Taurus is going to kind of corner that market, because at this price point, under $400, and with how prolific Taurus firearms tend to be, I think that we'll see a lot of these on the shelves. And, you know, if they're on the shelves in this particular climate, you know, when people walk in and they're ready to buy, they're typically buying what's there on the shelves. And so I think so long as Taurus can keep these stocked, I think that they have a competitive market position, especially based on price. Overall, the reliability seems to be there. The quality seems to be on par with Taurus, maybe not on par with Kimber or Sig Sauer, but for an everyday carry style firearm, when you don't need too many bells and whistles, I think that this is going to be a compelling option for a lot of shooters and new shooters alike. All right, and so with all that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and get up out of here. If you guys would like to see more of this firearm, if there's anything else that you'd like to see outside of this initial impressions and highlight video, if you will, go down to the comments and let me know. I do have plans to do a head-to-head between this GX4 and the Sig Sauer P365 here in the near future, okay? And so stick around for that. If you're interested in seeing something like that, make sure that you go ahead and hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and while you're doing all that, leave a comment for the algorithm. I do appreciate it. Without further ado, I'm gone. I'm not going to say that these have bad visibility. It's actually quite good. That white up front, black and back combo. Pause, that sounded really bad, didn't it?